This video aims to explain what is meant by interpretation when doing the CLAS National Diploma in Calligraphy. All 3 level handbooks mention interpretation as an element to assess in the work that's submitted. It's important to remember that the way the text is interpreted must also fit with what's required in the module. Read all the assessment criteria carefully and ensure your work meets them. For instance, if different weights or sizes are required, make sure they're incorporated. There are no rights or wrongs about it, and while certain design decisions may well be suitable, there may be some that don't really fit with the text, and this is what the assessors will look for. So to interpret your text, first of all, consider who's this piece of work for? Who will be reading it? Is legibility or accessibility of importance, or is this work not necessarily informative, but decorative and creative instead? What's the text about? What emotions, mood, or atmosphere do you as the artist wish to convey? Answering these 2 questions will immediately help to narrow your options down and focus your decisions. And so what else do you need to make decisions about? Well, the writing can be more than just one size, weight, or colour, but it should be a style suitable to the intended audience. So if children or the general public are reading the work, then a script similar to what's usually seen in books or on screen will be easier to read, something like foundational, Roman capitals, or formal italic. Is the text from a particular time or place? For example, uncial for a Celtic blessing or a Gothic cursive for the Canterbury Tales aren't absolutely necessary, of course, but could be thought of as appropriate. If the subject matter is about, say, the wind, water, or flowers, a delicate, flowing script may suit the piece best, perhaps an italic or lightweight hand. If the text has a forceful message, you could use a strong or heavily weighted script, whereas if it's to go into a book format, which script sits best when written at a reasonable size for the book? Perhaps Carolingian, uncial, or italic. The size and shape of the work is influenced by interpretation as well. So a square has equal thrust in all directions, and so it stands securely, offering a strong but possibly static layout. A long horizontal layout will appear calming or could suggest a journey, extended time, or a feeling of wide open space. Whereas a tall vertical layout has a completely different feel about it, which can be forceful, sophisticated, or graceful. The lettering can still be calm, but it may have more elegance. The writing needn't only be placed in horizontal lines. The design may have some text across the page, but a line, word, or block could be positioned vertically or on a curve or diagonal as a contrast to add movement to the piece. You wouldn't want all of these on the page at the same time, but one of them will alter the dynamics of the design. And if you want to create something lively or to express a particular positive or negative emotion, the diagonal or curve is especially useful. Beware of stepped arrangements, though. They tend to merely drift across the page and lead the eye right out and away. It's more interesting to have a free-fall, informal layout of lines where none of them start or finish directly underneath each other, but this still gives a centrally balanced design. We need to give as much consideration to space as to the writing. Giving one word or phrase plenty of space around it on a page of closely knit writing will emphasize it. Having generous amounts of space within the entire piece can slow the reader down, giving the text some gravitas without having to use weighty writing. Close writing or little space on the page creates an overall density, giving a different kind of feel to the piece. Margins around the work need to be sufficient to set off the design in a complementary way. Again, if they're too narrow, the work will look as though it's trying to break out of the page, while very generous margins can sometimes make the work appear a bit lost and insubstantial. But if these are carefully judged, they can pull the eye in to an intricate or focused piece. So if you want to interpret a text as something perhaps very special or secret, or needing closer inspection, maybe tiny bits of gilding, then a wide margin will pull the eye into the piece. Colour is a vital element. We all have emotional responses to colour, and yet these vary between different cultures. In the West, red can signify danger, heat, or a bad temper, whereas in China, for instance, red's lucky. We often refer to colours as warm or cold because of popular associations and how they make us feel. So colour choices become very important in helping us to portray the meaning of a text or to create an atmosphere. Taking autumn as an example, beautiful russets, vibrant yellows and golds do the job very well, of course. Equally, using the deep purples, ochres and greens of ripened crops and fruit, or even just the pure cerulean of a crisp autumn sky, these all express elements of the season. But the words may tell of a dank, cold and misty autumn, and so shades of greys and blues will be more appropriate. If a piece of work has elements in tones of one colour, then a touch of its opposite colour somewhere will give it a real lift, whether it's for an initial letter, the credit, or a phrase for emphasis. It'll pop out from the rest and give good contrast. Contrast creates interest on the page. It's the drama. It can offer a focal point to draw the eye in straight away, or create movement around the piece. It can be used to emphasize certain parts of a text, or the opposite, to give an area less importance. Placement, space and colour all offer elements of contrast, and as calligraphers we can also use changes in style of script, its size and weight as contrast mechanisms. Keeping the same X height but varying the nib size will give heavier or lighter weight writing. Sometimes a heavier word can be more subtle than, for instance, using capitals to stress the meaning. Interpretation's a very personal thing, so you really should go along with what you feel works best for your chosen text, not necessarily just the easiest way of doing it. It's not a good idea to throw everything at the work, though, so think carefully about which aspects will put across what you'd like the viewer to feel or to understand most effectively. Better to accomplish a simpler interpretation successfully than to include too many variables that give a confused design. The assessors aren't looking for right or wrong interpretation. They want to see creative pieces where choices made about orientation, style, size, and weight of scripts, colour and space are compatible with and express the meaning of the text appropriately and sensitively. Be sure to read the assessment criteria before you start and check back with them throughout the process. You'll be successful in your diploma that way.